right, we're on question and answer 22. Go ahead.
So again, this is a little bit of a longer question and answer. So Ms. Novak, if you could just read that and let me know when you're done, please.
Okay,
So in question 22, you were asked about placing staff on administrative leave, correct?
correct.
And you again noted that while the CCI warden, you made the decision to place staff on administrative leave on a weekly basis, correct?
Correct.
You also noted that you, quote, normally don't call and ask permission. I just do what I do and tell them I'm putting somebody out on leave. Or I'm sorry, I actually misread that. Let me read it again. Quote, normally don't call and ask permission. I just do what I do and tell them that I'm putting someone out on leave, unquote. Did I read that correctly?
Yes,
You did not mention in this answer the need to run such decisions past Magda Fesahaya, correct?
well, that's part of putting them out on leave.
You didn't, again, I'll ask my question and ask to strike that answer as non-responsive. Again, the question is, you did not mention in this answer the need to run such decisions past Magda, correct?
I didn't put that in this answer,
Okay, thank you.
but that's
In
what I
fact, you
need.
went on to
No,
explain,
excuse me,
there's no
Ms. Novak.
question pending.
Okay,
One second. No,
I'm sorry.
1 second. Ms. Novak, just answer his question. Mr. Cross is here and he will answer any follow-up questions he needs to ask, okay?
okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Novak, in fact, you went on to explain that the only reason you reached out to Doug Percy was because you wanted his opinion, correct?
Correct.
And you never actually contacted Administrator Fesahaya about placing Zimbel on administrative leave, did you?
I didn't contact Ms. Fesahaya, no.
Okay.
Contacted my
And-
supervisor.
And you were interviewed 4 times by Internal Affairs in this case, correct?
I believe so.
And during those 4 interviews, you never mentioned that you needed to consult with Magda Fesahaya prior to placing staff on administrative leave, correct?
I don't know unless I read all of my interviews again.
Have you read your interviews?
Not recently.
You gave the interviews, correct?
Correct.
So to the best of your knowledge, you never mentioned that?
I don't know. The interviews are very lengthy, as you can tell. I might have.
Okay. And you didn't mention that fact, the fact, of course, again, that you needed to run or consult with Magda Fesahaya planning to or prior to placing staff on administrative leave during your pre-disciplinary meeting, did you?
That was just the process. That's how we did it.
Again, the question is, did you mention that during your pre-disciplinary meeting? Yes or no?
I don't know. My statement was 6, 7, 8 pages long. I'd have to reread it.
Okay. Judge, if you could go to page 550, please.
All right, we're on page 550 of Respondents Exhibit 12. Go ahead.
Okay. Ms. Novak, do you recognize this document?
Looks like my investigatory interview as a witness from 4/22/2020.
Okay. And Judge, if you could go to page 554 for me, please.
All right, we're on page 554. Where do you want to go?
Okay. I'm going to focus on question and answer 36 and 37.
All right, we're on 36 and 37, page 554 of Response Exhibit 12. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Novak, in these, well, I'll give you a minute to read them over.
"36 and 37. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. So in this question and answer session, you essentially indicated that you were notified of the escape at 4:57 a.m., correct?
Correct.
And the escape was verified around 5:30 a.m. Is that correct?
Approximately, I don't know exactly.
And sometime after 4:57 a.m., you called Deputy Warden Weber and instructed him to respond to the institution, correct?
Correct.
And I believe you testified to that yesterday, correct?
Yes.
What time did that call occur, roughly?
It was probably after I called Stephanie Hovey. I may have called Magda, or she called me. It was probably by 5:30.
Okay, so shortly after you were notified of the escape, correct?
Correct.
And yesterday you testified that during your conversation with Deputy Warden Weber, you instructed him to ensure the checklist gets completed when he arrives at the institution. Do you remember testifying to that?
Yes.
Okay, and again, you were interviewed by Internal Affairs 4 times in relation to this matter, correct?
I believe so.
And 2 of those interviews were as the subject, correct?
I think so. Yes.
Nope. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And at no time during any of those interviews did you mention that you instructed Deputy Warden Weber to ensure that the checklist was completed prior to you arriving at the institution, correct?
I didn't mention that.
That's correct.
Again, I'd have to look through all the interviews to see if it was in there or not.
Okay, but you don't recall that you did do that at this, as you sit here right now, correct?
I know we talked about the checklist. That was one of the first things we talked about.
That's not my question. My question is, did you mention that in any of the 4 interviews that you gave to Internal Affairs?
And I said I didn't know unless I reread all my interviews.
Okay. Judge, in same Exhibit 12, if you could go to page 157 for me, please.
All right. All right, we're on response exhibit 12, page 157. Go ahead.
So again, we've discussed this a couple of times now, but you recognize this document?
In my investigatory interview as a subject on 5/28/2020.
Okay. And Judge, if you could go to page 158, I'm focused on question and answer 15, please.
All right, page 158, question 15. Go ahead.
Ms. Novak, could you just read that? You don't need to read it out loud, but just read it read it and let me know when you're done, please.
Okay.
So in this question, you were asked whether you gave Mr. Weber any direction other than to report to the institution, correct?
Correct.
And that was while you were on the phone with him, correct?
Correct.
And your response was, I don't know, I don't think so, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you also say, you go on there, I remember giving, I remember more giving the direction to security director because I know he was the initial point of contact with the captain, correct?
Yes. You want me to explain that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that answer.
Did you want me to explain that?
Well, I'll ask you questions and you can explain it. Did you have a conversation with Security Gusky prior to you arriving at the institution?
Yes, I think I thought I testified that we talked about if the institution was on lockdown, we talked about doing the emergency count.
Right. Did you mention the checklist to Security Director Gusky?
He wasn't at the institution. I don't recall.
And like you, Security Director Gusky lived about an hour away from CCI, correct?
Yes.
And in any of your 4 interviews with Internal Affairs, you did not mention that you instructed Gusky to complete the checklist prior to your arrival at the institution, correct?
I don't have to it's not my job to tell them to do that. It's in policy. It should have been done when the escape happened.
So the answer is no, correct?
At any time, did I instruct Gusky?
She
No, my
answered the
question is, at
question.
any time during your 4 interviews, did you mention that you instructed Gusky to complete the checklist prior to your arrival at the institution?
I'd have to look through my interviews. I can't say for sure.
Okay. And you also did not mention that fact during your pre-disciplinary meeting, correct? The fact that you either talked to, or I'm sorry, instructed Deputy Warden Weber or Security Director Gusky to complete the checklist prior to your arrival at the institution, correct?
I'd have to read my statement.
Judge, if you could go to page 182 for me, please. It's Exhibit 12 again.
All right, we're on page 182, response exhibit 12. Go ahead.
Ms. Novak, do you recognize this document?
It is a summary of investigation findings.
And you've seen this before?
Yes.
Judge, if you could go down to the last paragraph of page 182 for me, please. Right there is good. Yeah, right there. Thank you. I'd like to direct your attention to the last paragraph. Could you read that paragraph out loud for me?
The one that starts with the DAI security chief?
Yes.
Did she write this document? Is she the author of this document?
I'll read it to her. That's fine.
Well, good. No. Excuse me. If we're going to have the same rules here, how is she going to testify that she knows that this is what was actually said?
She just testified to that.
She says she's recognized this document. She didn't testify, just like we had with the issue with the warden's statements to the inmate group, without having the inmate group here to testify that these are the statements. I'm going to object that this is hearsay.
Well, first of all, Judge, if I could just respond to that, I'm not saying that this is what she said. I'm saying that this is what was contained in the summary report, and she had the summary report prior to her pre-disciplinary meeting. So it goes to what she knew when she was at that meeting.
Okay, establish that foundation, please.
Okay, well, again, Ms. Novak, you recognize this document, correct?
Yes.
And what do you recognize it to be?
Investigative findings.
Well, it's Judge, if you could go up a little bit, I just want to make sure that she understands what the document is. So it's called the Summary of Investigation Findings, correct?
Correct.
And you've seen this document before?
Yes.
You had this document prior to your pre-disciplinary meeting, or you've seen it and read it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Judge, if I could again go back down to the last paragraph on page 182. So in this document, the last paragraph begins, DAI Security Chief Larry Fuchs arrived at CCI at 7:40 a.m. on April 16th, 2020, as he was assigned to assist with the escape. When Mr. Fuchs arrived, he met with CCI leadership, including Warden Novak. Fuchs was concerned about the administrative response. Specifically, when he arrived, everything seemed unorganized. He stated that the escape checklist had not been started and that they should have been immediately initiated, and that incident command should have been established well before his arrival. There's a citation to the record there, and it continues, Warden Novak arrived at CCI at 7:17 a.m. on April 16th, 2020, and did not verify that the notifications had been made. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
So prior to your pre-disciplinary meeting, you knew that that was one of the allegations that were being made against you, correct?
Yes.
But at no time, again, you never stated during your pre-disciplinary meeting that you instructed either Gusky or Weber to complete the checklist, correct?
Well, it was in Mr. Weber's letter that we saw yesterday that I got there and ensured notifications were made.
Well, right, but my question is, in your pre-disciplinary meeting, you made no mention of the fact that you instructed Weber or Gusky to start the checklist, correct?
That's not correct. It's an 8-page document. I would have to go through each line to see what I said at that time.
So so you don't know if it's not correct, you just don't know whether it's correct, what I'm saying, correct?
You're asking if I brought something to my disciplinary hearing as in my statement, and I'm telling you it's a long document that I
Right.
can't say for sure if it's in there or not.
Right, but because you can't say for sure, you have no idea whether what I'm saying is accurate or inaccurate, correct?
That question, correct.
Okay. Ms. Novak, you were not present at the institution when the escape occurred, correct?
Correct.
And under those circumstances, an incident command post should have been established, correct?
Correct.
And the highest ranking member present in the institution becomes the first incident commander, is that correct?
Correct.
And that incident commander, let me rephrase. That first incident commander remains the incident commander until a higher ranking member arrives in the institution, is that correct?
Yes. Or unless the higher ranking person lets them continue to be.
Okay. And in relation to the escape that occurred on April 16th, there were 3 incident commanders on that day, correct?
You mean, yeah, at different times, correct?
Judge, if you could go to page 504 for me, please.
All right, we're on Response Exhibit 12, page 504. Go ahead.
Okay, again, could you just tell me what this document that we're looking at is, please, Ms. Novak?
An investigatory interview where I am the subject and the date is 5/28/2020.
Okay, and Judge, if you could go down to page 507. I'm looking at question and answer 29, please.
All right, we're on page 507, Response Exhibit 12, question 29. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Novak, I'll give you a little time to read that over. Just let me know when you're done, please.
Okay.
Okay, so in this answer 29, you explain that the first incident commander was Captain Boudry, correct?
Yes.
And the second incident commander was Deputy Warden Weber, correct?
Correct.
And the third incident commander was you, correct?
Correct.
Judge, if you could now go to Exhibit 9. I believe it has already been admitted.
All right, Response Exhibit 9 was admitted. All right, we're on Response Exhibit 9, page 109.
And I'm actually looking at wanting to discuss page 113, please, Judge.
Just going to scroll through this slowly. You said 113?
Yes, please.
All right, we're on page 113. Go ahead.
And this is just a one-page document, but Judge, if you could just scroll all the way down so she could see the entire thing, please, for me. Thank you. Ms. Novak, do you recognize this document?
No, not really. I couldn't see who it was to.
Judge, if you could scroll up again a little bit, please. Thank you. Do you recognize this document now?
It's placing somebody out on leave.
And Judge, can you scroll all the way to the bottom of this document, please? And you signed this document, correct, Ms. Novak?
Yes.
And who is this placing out on leave?
We redacted it because we didn't want to put people's names unless it was necessary. Is this necessary?
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Judge, but it became necessary yesterday during Ms. Novak's testimony. That's why that's the only reason I'm bringing it in now.
All right, go ahead.
As I say, the name's not on there. Do you want me to guess?
No, it's placing a supervisor or supervising officer 2 on administrative leave, correct?
Correct.
How many supervising officer 2s did you place on administrative leave in relation to this escape?
I think one that
Who was that one?
It's Captain Boudry.
Kevin Boudry?
Captain Boudry.
Yeah, and he was the first incident commander, correct?
Yes, he was the captain on shift when the escape occurred.
Okay. During your previous testimony yesterday, you admitted that the electronic monitoring center was not immediately notified as required by the escape policy, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, the monitoring center had to reach out to CCI after learning about the escape on the news, correct?
I don't know if that's accurate.
Well, let me shorten that question up then. The monitoring center had to reach out to CCI. CCI did not reach out to the monitoring center, correct?
If you know,
Yeah, that was done with Security Director Gusky. That wasn't done through me, so I don't know who contacted who.
Okay, well, you admit that it was delayed, correct?
Well, yes, it should have been done at 4:30 when the escape happened. At 5 o'clock or 5:30 when it was verified, that's when it should have been done.
Okay, you also admitted yesterday that the Office of Victim Services and Programs was not immediately notified as required by the escape policy, correct?
They were not notified at 5:30 a.m., no.
So not immediately notified as required by the policy, correct?
The policy doesn't give a time frame, but they weren't notified right after the escape.
The policy doesn't give any time frame at all?
I don't think so.
Okay. Judge, if you could go to same Exhibit 12, page 504, please.
We're on response exhibit 9, so you want to go back to 12?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just check my notes here real quick. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. So the same exhibit. If you could go to page 509. I'm sorry.
Respondents exhibit 12 as opposed to response exhibit 9, which is the
Yeah,
document
respondents
we're on
exhibit
now.
12. Yep, I apologize. Respondents exhibit 12, and let's actually start with page 504.
Okay, 1 second.